can sleep tonight. I hope you had a really nice day. I hope you find these videos relaxing as you close out the day and you wind down. Close your eyes while I talk about my journey towards financial independence. Before we get started, if you're getting value out of these episodes, please hit the like button for me. I would greatly appreciate it. And consider subscribing to my channel as well. So this week I've been talking about 2008. The Great Recession. I was 42 years old, and by September of 2008, Lehman Brothers, as I talked about, went bankrupt. The fourth largest investment firm in the country was gone. It was a very difficult and challenging time for a lot of people in this country. I would venture to guess, and I know that there were a lot of people during that time that may have had, let's say, $1 million. See, I was still broke. I was broke at 40, and by 2008, I literally only had maybe, $40,000 to my name. I had a negative net worth, most likely at that time. I think on one of my back episodes I probably messed up as far as my net worth. It's hard to remember exactly what I had during those years. I just know that it was the beginning and my net worth was a negative number. And I think in one of my episodes I said it was a positive number when I was listening back to that, and so I apologize. But I still owed a lot more because I had a mortgage of like $95,000 and only a little bit of money in my 401k at that time in 2008. But think about all of the people in 2008 that thought the stock market would continue to go up and up and up. And maybe they were not well diversified, or maybe their asset allocation was totally off base. They may have had like 90% in stocks. That would have been horrific for them when you think about it, because the market, as you know, lost 40 to 50%. So if you had all your money in the S&P 500 and even low-cost index funds at that time, your portfolio would go from $1 million to $500,000. And if you are trying to live off of that money, if you are already retired, which, by the way, I can't imagine anybody having a 100% stock portfolio if they retired, and if they did, then that would be a huge mistake. Because if they were taking money from their portfolio at 4%, let's say, the 4% rule, they would have $40,000. But if the market tanks, they'd have $20,000. It would be cut in half if they had all of their money 100% in stocks, which would be ridiculous. But there were people like that in 2008. So my heart goes out to them because they just didn't know any better. They had a lot of money. They just didn't know any better about the essence of bear markets and the history of bear markets, which is what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. But before I transition into that, I had mentioned that I also in 2008 became obsessed with savings calculators. I would go to the calculator and put in how much money I had, and then I would start to forecast into the future, not really knowing that it would take a couple years from this time for things to start going up. But I was putting money in the market, and I was buying the shares really low. But savings calculators at that time was something I first started really looking into. It was something that helped me visualize out a year or 5 years, like I've talked about in the other episodes this week. And you know, for me at that time, I only had, like I said, about $40,000. So if the market goes down, 40%, I didn't have much to lose. Unlike those other people that I talked about that had a lot of money and they lost it. See, for me then, at this time in the economy that we were in 2008, I had to leverage it, as I mentioned, to make sure that I had enough wiggle room in my budget so I could start saving and investing. And next week we'll be talking about 2009. I had no idea that it was the beginning of the longest running bull market in the history of our country with regard to the stock market. And before I talk about bear markets, I want to say I started to also believe in what I like to call the value journey. The value journey to me meant that I knew I was positioned with a really good company, and I was going to bring value to that company. I would arrive early and stay late. I would work extra hours, and I made sure that people knew that I was in it for the company, that I was a team player, that I would do the job that was needed to be done, that I would try not to complain that much, and that I was seen as an employee that could get things done. So for those of you listening that are still in the beginning stages of your career, if you can master positioning yourself in the eyes of the company that they value at you as an employee, then you're going to survive times where there might be layoffs, right? Maybe your company has a layoff. They may choose this other person rather than you because you bring more value to the department and to the company in which you are working for. So always remember that. But the value journey really has to transition from what you give to your company to what you give yourself. And what that meant to me was I knew that I could either take all of the income that was given to me and spend it for my current today's, meaning I could have taken really great vacations, I could have built or I could have lived in a bigger home. All those years I could have had a more expensive car. But I chose to put the money to build the value journey, which to me meant I wanted to get to financial independence. And we'll talk about what financial independence is in other episodes. But I chose in 2008 to really believe that in the future years, I would take most of my income that I was paid today to build an engine that would create income for tomorrow. Because there's many years that you're working for your company that the value really is you giving to them. And yes, they could be paying you an income to pay for your todays, but only when you transition into having the ability to save and invest does it really come into your favor. It comes into your favor when you begin to build the engine. If you don't build your own engine, then the company wins the game. That your career, you'll look back on it and say, yeah, I had a lot of great homes. I had great vacations. I had great cars. I've got a boat. I have this. I have that. But I need to continue to get that income coming in every single year from a W-2 job in order to sustain my current lifestyle. And for me, that's not what I wanted to do. I chose to believe instead in what I like to call the value journey. And I also wanted to talk about, in this episode, I had mentioned bear markets. It was the first time in 2008 that I really started to understand the ebb and flow of economy and these terms called bear markets and bull markets. You know, I didn't go to college for finance. I didn't understand much about finance whatsoever, really. But I started doing some research. I started Googling, and I was learning that bear markets on average, bear markets. A bear market is when stocks lose 20% or more of their value. In 2020, we had a little bear market which lasted only a few short months because it was known as a V-shaped recovery. And stocks came back up, but that's not the average. The average bear market where stocks lose value is about 14 months. And there's an average of about 33% loss in the stock market from top to bottom. And to put that in perspective, in 1929, with the Great Depression, the market lost 86% of its value, which is huge. And it took 34 months to recover, so it didn't recover until 1954. Amazing. In 1973, when I was, 7 or 8 years old, we had another recession. I remember that recession as a little kid. My mom used to take milk that we bought from the store, put it in another container, and then add powdered milk and water to it to stretch it out. Because there was such a shortage of milk, I think at that time, gas prices were through the roof. That recession lasted 21 months. High inflation, and there was a 48% loss in the stock market. And then finally, in 2008, which is what we're talking about this week, the stock market lost an astounding 56%. So not as high as the Great Depression, which was 86. This was 56%. So 30% less than in the Great Depression, but still a staggering number. 17 months that bear market lasted from October of 2007 until March of 2009. But as I said previously, I had positioned myself with a good company. I had income. And so I would begin the journey, which we'll talk about next week, in 2009, of riding the wave of the biggest bull market in the history of the stock market. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. If you like content like this, please hit the like button for me. I would greatly appreciate it, and subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my channel as well. And I'll see you guys next time.